thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to 100 Not Out, featuring your hosts Dr. Damien Christoph and Marcus Pearce.
Welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. My name is Marcus Pearce, and I am here with the dead set legend himself, the co-founder of The Wellness Couch and The Wellness Guys. He's Dr. Damien Christoph. Hello, legend.
Marcus, great to be here.
We've got a very special guest today. And it's just so novel,
It's such
isn't
a weird
it?
thing that we're actually now looking at it as something else.
I know, to be in the flesh with you is a whole different experience.
Amazing.
Yeah. We have a very special guest today on 100 Not Out. We're going to shoot up to Mitchell's Island, New South Wales. Let me share this story with you. Before I do, I might just want to mention a couple of special things about 100 Not Out. We are proudly brought to you these days, coming to you through YouTube and the Wellness Couch and the rest, by Forage. And I always like to say about Forage, in nature, find health. Find out more at foragecereal.com. And we're also brought to you by the Greek Island 100 Not Out Longevity Retreat, coming to you June 20 to 29 in Ikaria this year. If you haven't jumped on board and it's before Feb 29 when you're watching or listening to this, go to 100notout.com, check out all the details. We'd love to have you there if there is room still on the trip. But Damo, this is going to be an incredible story. We've got a very special guest, and let me tell you a little bit about Heather Bolstler. At the turn of the century, 6 friends, 3 couples, decided that they were not going to end up in a nursing home as they got older. They weren't going to die alone, which sadly is the fate of so many people in society today. What they did do, of course, this is the obvious answer, they decided to build a house together, a communal home in Mitchell's Island, just south of Port Macquarie in New South Wales. The Shedders, as they are known, we've got Heather, Rick, Eve, Dan, Michael and Judy, are not only aging well in good health, they are living remarkable lives of purpose and engagement with a remarkable story to tell. One of the Shedders is a lady by the name of Heather Bolstler, who around 4 years ago penned her experiences in a book titled Shedders, the story on how 6 urban revolutionaries rewrote the manual on retirement. To tell us all about it, we give a very warm 100 Not Out welcome to Heather Bolstler. Thanks for joining us, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather, it's such an incredible thing to do. And, you know, often we hear people saying, if things don't get better, I'm going to move countries. Or if things don't get better, I'm going to set up my own little commune and take off somewhere and I'll live happily ever after with only the people that I want to live with. And you've done it, which is amazing.
We have.
Congratulations. Now, how did you get to doing this? Like, was it a big task?
Well, it was a long task. We were friends. The 6 of us were friends for a long time. We'd kind of come together through various things that we did, getting to know each other, and we began as couples holidaying together over the Christmas break. And you know how it is on holidays; everything goes so well, and you're relaxed. And we had such a fabulous time together, and that was really where these conversations began. Like, what if we were in 3 or 5 or 10 years to retire together, and then we got into the conversations about aging and what was concerning us about the way that some of our parents and other older people we knew, the isolation and loneliness that they were encountering in their aging. And so we just from those seeds, then the whole project developed. And over the years, we bought a piece of property. We trialed living together by renting a house in Sydney, a big house in Sydney, together for a while. And then when we were pretty confident about the whole thing, then we built the house that we're living in now, and we moved into that in late 2009.
So, Heather, I want to ask you on this. I imagine you would have had a fair degree of resistance from your community or your friends or family members that, you know, they probably said to you, you know, we've got your best interests at heart here. You're crazy. What are you doing? Nobody ever does this. Like, I'm guessing you would have met some resistance along the journey.
Yes, of course. But I think most of the resistance was a bit covert. You could just detect a sideways kind of look. I actually think that most of our friends were quite supportive of it. There was the odd person who said, you know, I'd rather I'd rather put nails under my fingernails than try and organize living with other people.
Wow.
But mostly people were kind of warily, yeah, go for it, and I'd like to see how this is going to work out.
It's such a great story. It's a great story. Now, this would attract a lot of attention, and there was a film, like a documentary filmmaker group that wanted to capture the experience together, but of course you're all great friends and everything went too smoothly and there was no drama, and so they couldn't make anything of it because, you know, reality television these days has to be good and bad, but mainly bad. So which is amazing. Is there just nothing that goes wrong with you guys?
Well, there's lots of things that come up. I think it's part of.
Give us all the goss, Heather. We want to know everything. What happens on the inside?
It's part of the benefit of it, really, that stuff comes up all the time. Every day we have to deal with things, but because we know each other well, and because we're really committed to communicating our way through things tend not to build up and become really big and really dramatic. So we have our small dramas and we have our moments, but mostly, if you talked with any of us, anyone would say this works really well, and it's a very beneficial thing that we've done with our lives.
From what I understand, sorry to interrupt. From what I understand, you guys all met. So when I say you guys, I probably should introduce you all. We've got yourself and your husband Rick. We have Eve and Dan Grisbowski. And we have Michael and Judy. So we've got the six of you. From what I gather, you all met around 30-odd years ago doing the Landmark Forum. Is that correct?
Well, Eve and Michael and Judy were yoga practitioners, and they met early in the piece, probably in the late 70s, doing such things as teacher training together, yoga teacher training. So that was one of the roots of where we came from. And then we all did, at some point or other, not together, we all did a program called the Landmark Forum, which is really about creating possibility in your life and not getting stopped at the first obstacle that comes up. So I'm sure that's had some real influence in how we've approached the project that we took on.
So
so we met just kind of over the course of maybe 10 years. We met one another, but we'd known each other. I think we'd known everyone for about 15, 20 years by the time we started talking about building the house together.
And I think there's no doubt that type of foundation, like you said, you've a number of people in the group have experience as yoga teachers. You've done a level of personal growth through Landmark, and no doubt other work as well. I imagine that must lay a really strong foundation in the dynamic that you guys have together, that if things do come up, if challenges do, not if, it's more when challenges do come up, that you all come from a really strong place in that you all have a belief that you can work through whatever challenges arise. Would that be a fair assessment?
That's right. It's about trust, really, isn't it? And we have we had quite a solid base of trust when we first started talking about the project, and by now we trust ourselves and each other that we can work through things. And a valuable thing is we know each other's strengths, and so you know who to rely on in certain situations. So, like Eve is particularly good at drawing out something that's bothering someone. And Judy is particularly good at organizing and making sure that something happens. And Michael is particularly good at dreaming up the next project that we might be taking on, like that.
It's amazing. It sounds so good that you can all contribute to each other's lives and well-being. And I remember about 6 years ago, I got married, and it was beautiful, Heather. We had a beautiful wedding, but it was just the two of us, and we were able to give ourselves vows, and we promised each other that we'd stick together for the rest of our lives in sickness and in health, and better for worse, and all of those things. Are you guys obliged to spend the rest of your lives together?
We have a carefully crafted exit agreement, and at any point, anybody can say this isn't working, or for any reason. Someone could die, someone could get sick, someone could want to move someplace else. So for any reason, it could fall apart. And we're just, if that happens, it happens. But our commitment is kind of for better and for worse, till death do us part.
So I'm
practically
curious.
speaking,
So
Yep.
Damien and I were both curious, and pardon our detail orientation here, and if you're not comfortable telling us, then let us know. But are any new members allowed in?
there's no rules about that. There's no rules about that.
Damien and I are thinking that we might like to relocate, bring our families up, join the
Well,
Shedders.
Let's get to know you for 20 years or so, and we'll proceed from there.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'd love to ask you, and I know our listeners would love to know, and it draws back a bit to what we were talking about earlier, just tips that you might have for listeners that, you've said here, and I think it was, might have been Michael that was recently quoted. I first read about you guys I better give Wellbeing a plug, because this is how we learnt about you guys, and one of you were quoted as saying that many people as they get older get more set in their ways. They might get snarly when things happening, but when you're a member of the Shedders, it keeps you all young. But I suppose the question is, what are your tips for shedding? When stuff comes up, how do you find you work through it, and what could you recommend for people as ways to look at not being so emotionally attached to the challenges that come up in their lives?
Yeah, isn't that a great question? The recipe for life, success in life. I think you've kind of nailed it, Marcus, when you talk about just being willing to let things go and not being so attached. And I think that's the great secret. It's why we call ourselves the Shedders. Technically, we had a shed on our property, and we talked about going up to the shed, and then we became the Shedders when we realized all that we were going to have to let go of to shed in order to make this thing work together. And it's being willing to make changes to yourself and being willing to listen in a way that that we normally don't have to listen, to be with things, to be with different opinions. It just requires more of that quality of letting go, of releasing our certainty, our judgments about things. So that's pretty conceptual. But,
well, it's great. I think it's a philosophy that's definitely missing in today, in the real world. I suppose or maybe you're the real world. We're not the real world, but in our world, there's definitely a loss of respect for other people's opinions, and people make judgments based on other people's decisions. So it sounds like an oasis. It sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's human nature. What you're describing is just human nature. But to be able to stand back and say, "Whoa, I'm doing that," and this is not going to work. I know from much experience that this will not work. Let's find another way.
Yeah.
That's the powerful next step. To be able to be willing to be in conversation and to be willing to be rethinking something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's often three conversations that people don't want to talk about. One of them's politics, the other one's religion, and I can't remember the third one, but there's a third one. But I can imagine, I can imagine that there would be with only one kitchen, there'd be a lot of conversations that you may not be able to have much of. In fact, when I'm in the kitchen, it's my domain. I only like to be in the kitchen, and I'll cook for everybody in the house as long as I get to be in the kitchen by myself. As soon as someone else steps into the kitchen, I'm challenged with that. So, do you have a chef? Do you have a chief chef and dishwasher? Who gets that straw?
Do you have meal plans coming out of your head, like who's cooking this every night and all types of convoluted plans?
This is one of my favorite parts is we actually all share the cooking, and we share it pretty evenly. So everybody is a decent cook. Everybody has their specialties. Some people are very good cooks. And we just take turns. We don't have an official roster, but, if I think, it was, let's see, Michael did the cooking yesterday and Eve did it the day before, that means it's our turn. Then we'll draw a meal together. So we generally have dinner together. We're around. We'll always have dinner together. We don't have other meals or other scheduled times together. But it's just a nice thing at the end of the day. First of all, to have someone cook for you, and secondly, just to sit down and catch up what's going on and kind of trek through the day.
Food and socialising, Damo, it's something that we talk about so often, just combining good food and doing it with others.
It sounds like it's almost like a permanent holiday. I'm picturing this and I'm going, I could do this. It's a permanent holiday. That sounds great.
It's so much better than pork and beans by yourself or heating up a summer.
Absolutely. And from
If you
what I
only
can...
have to cook once a week, you have fun cooking, and you have fun thinking about what it's going to be and preparing, and then you definitely have fun eating it.
And you're doing it with other people. And the other thing that I understand, Heather, is that you've got an incredible veggie garden on your property as well, and that a number of you are all keen gardeners. So, again, this oasis that Damien and I are visualising here, you go out into the veggie patch, you pick your fresh tomatoes, your cucumbers, zucchini, your pumpkin, you do all those beautiful things, and you take it back in and you lovingly prepare a meal for your best friends. Is that pretty much how it works?
I like that picture. That's pretty accurate.
It's fantastic. It's just beautiful. Heather, just to give you an insight, Damien and I have over 150 odd episodes have recognised that living a life on purpose, moving regularly and being socially engaged are the three big essentials to living a great long life. And from what we can tell, you guys are absolutely mastering this. But one of the big keys, which you've mentioned in this article that Damien and I have both read, is just your love life, making love. I think a number of people have pointed the finger and going, well, what are these guys doing about their love life? Like, is it too private that they don't feel comfortable making love with each other, or are they all sharing everyone and the rest? Like, I think a few people have been coming up with assumptions which, one, aren't fair, but two, they're intensely curious about. But I would love to ask you more to promote the importance of making love with, the man or woman that you love. How important do you find at this stage of your life having that intimacy in your relationship whilst you are living with two other couples in this house?
Well, you're asking about sex, and I think sex is really important in just in being in your skin, in getting on in the world. We don't have sexual activity with other partners, just with our own partner. That's never been never been an issue, never been anything that was ever on the table. It's always been the social aspect where we decided to do the sharing. I don't know whether that's what other people think, or whether it becomes an issue for them. But
I just think it's curious, don't you think, that people... I think people these days, and I live up in Byron Bay, Heather, so it's very much a big assumption around where I live, that if people live on a communal property, that
yes,
all of a sudden there's not just a sharing of food, but there's a sharing of other partners as well. And I can tell just in the tone of the article that I was reading in the Wellbeing Mag that there was a suspicion or a curiosity around whether every couple was exclusive, or whether there was a sharing. But I think it's really important that when you talk about that exclusivity, that making love, and we talk about this in Ikaria, they get to 90 and 100 and beyond, and they say, look, they make love 2 or 3 times a week, and it's a big part of their life. Whereas society is almost beginning to one of the things you were talking about, the 3 things we don't talk about at the table, I was thinking you were going to say sex, because people are like, it's almost becoming offensive, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
Almost becoming a what?
Offensive, like that it's not something that we should even embrace. But I think it's really important that what you're saying is that sex, making love, is a really important part of your relationship as you get older.
Yes, I agree. I'm coming up to my 70th birthday, and I agree strongly.
That's great to hear. It's very refreshing to know, given that I'm at the ripe young age of 42, and there's still at least another 30 years. So that's great to hear, Heather. Now, obviously, this arrangement's also led to reduced costs to everybody. And but you and Rick travel to Canada 3 months of the year, which I believe is largely funded by the money you save on other costs. Can you describe the level of fulfillment that this brings to you? Does it make you feel fantastic that you've got that flexibility, the ability to save on things and then go and explore other parts of the world?
It is fantastic. I just feel it gives me choices that I wouldn't be able to dream of. I mean, right now I'm sitting on my deck, my personal, Rick's and my personal deck, and I'm looking out over our fabulous gardens, this banana palm waving in front of me.
The visualization just gets more and more beautiful, doesn't it, Damien?
And we have a beautiful house. And these are not things that Rick and I would have been able to afford comfortably on our own. So we have a 4-acre property here in the country. And so it represents a real saving for us. And yes, it does allow us to have a more interesting lifestyle, to travel more, to do more of what we want than we otherwise would be able to do.
It's an incredible, I think everyone listening to this is going, I'm going to call my best friend.
And something else is that I think for all six of us, as we spent about a year and a half looking for a property, and really went through a lot of do we want a 200-acre property? Somebody wanted 200 acres. Somebody wanted a city block. Do we want to be near the cappuccino machines? Do we whatever? So we went through a lot while we were looking, and we gravitated toward the country. But I think I would have been nervous moving into the country with just Rick and myself. But to bring in, to kind of import a bit of community as a kind of starter agent was really valuable and really works nicely. So even though we are on an essentially quite rural property, we have all the company that we want. And because we're all social and we're all engaged in other things in the community, we bring a lot of the community into us. So because Eve's been offering yoga classes, they're just fabulous people who come to the classes, and I've made very good friends out of a number of those people.
Well, it seems like you guys are so engaged in the community. From what we can tell, like you said, Eve teaches yoga, you're in a gardening club, Michael teaches mindfulness, you're all in a writers group. Damien and I were learning.
Our favourite thing is the community choir that we sing in.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this. I was just going to add in just so people can absolutely get a glimpse of just how incredible a life you guys are living. From what we understand, your friends Judy and Eve are also palliative care volunteers helping out the nurses in the area.
That's right. Yeah.
We were reading earlier around about a neighbour of yours who had developed breast cancer, who also lived on a rural property, and you helped your friend with the crops and just helped her out in many ways so that you could actually just support your community in more ways than one. And yes, Damien and I have been learning that you have all joined the community choir. And Damien, I haven't actually told you this, but 8 weeks of choir therapy, which I just consider belting out your favourite songs, right? Belting out a bit of Michael Jackson, helps people with depression and anxiety normalise their brainwaves in 2 months, 60 days. Remarkable. So how are you finding the choir?
We just love it. It's a really vibrant choir, and it's such a community. There's probably about 40 people who are in the choir, and so on any given night there'll be 30, and the amount of harmony you can make with those voices. Everyone's enthusiastic. Everyone is there because they absolutely love to sing.
Heather, can you give us like just a couple of lines of your favourite song?
I can't.
It's a bit like asking the comedian to be funny. I appreciate that. I had to ask though.
I wouldn't be able to live with myself afterward.
I love it.
I'm curious, what are some of your favourite songs? The community comes together, you got 30 or 40 there at practice. What are some of the favourite songs that you like to belt out?
There's nothing like a good old gospel song. We do a number of those. The African songs have this just such a strong, rollicking beat to them. Love those. And then we just do some, like one of my favorites is Across the Universe, the Beatles song. We do a wonderful rendering of that. So it's a wide range. I don't even know if I have a favorite genre, but there's again so much choice.
Oh, it's been remarkable to listen to your journey. We are so grateful, Heather, for the time that you have shared with us here on 100 Not Out. Well done to the Shedders. Congratulations on the life.
And I love your enthusiasm. Thank you.
Well, again, when we learned about your story, it was just remarkable to see a group of people living the 100 Not Out message demo. They're doing this, and they're not just renting the idea. They're actually
not wishing it. They're doing it. It's good.
It's absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to give your website, your book, a really big plug, because I think if you want to learn more about what Heather and the Shedders are doing, go to shedders.wordpress.com, shedders.wordpress.com. Just Google Shedders. You'll be able to find it and really learn about what these guys are doing, how they're living. And again, it's just an incredible story of living the 100 Not Out message. Heather, thank you so much again for joining us on 100 Not Out. And like we like to say to every single guest on the 100 Not Out podcast, may the rest of your life truly be the best of your life.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, remember, folks, we would love to hear your feedback. There's many ways to do it. Now that we're on YouTube, you can find us on YouTube. Also find us at DamienChristoff.com, MarcusPearce.com.au, and TheWellnessCouch.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. If you want to go to social media, you can find us at you can find us at Facebook.com/100 Not Out. Check us out there, and go to TheWellnessCouch.com, where you can enjoy over 20 podcasts all on health and wellness, including the number one show, The Wellness Guys. Until next week, Damo, thanks for joining us, and as always, may the rest of your life continue to be the best of your life.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.